Welcome to the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Rose, and as always, a big shout out to all of you who are free spirits, independent thinkers, all of you who have made a deep commitment to the Maverick path, which means retaining your sense of individuality. We walk as a tribe of one, right? Anyway, thank you for listening. Today, we have a wonderful guest. She is an astrologer and also a shaman. She walks the shaman path. And today we're going to talk deeply about shamanism and how she moved into that path. But I also want to ask her, how do we find the shaman within? So I welcome Agneta Borstein. Come on board.
Beautiful. And thank you for inviting me. So it's great seeing you. And we are here.
We are here. Welcome. And I'm so glad that you will join us because many people ask me about shamanism, and there is a sense of phenomenalistic, spooky, special abilities when we think of shamans. So let me begin by first asking you, how do you define shamanism?
And the word itself actually stands for healer. And a healer, you go back to all the different, way back when all society would have a shaman, and sometimes they would be outcasts. Now, when we sit here in the 21st century, we tend to say I'm a shamanic practitioner is a respectful way that I got in my education. I will tell you about that later. But lately, it's quite interesting how some individuals, myself including, maybe we are just shamans. Maybe we have a new world to see, like, okay, I'm a practitioner. I practice shamans. So I'm always in between to respect where I had my 5-year education in shamanism, which is from the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And we would typically say shamanic practitioner. So because we are asking, or you, Kathy was asking at this time of shifts and changes that people go through. We have now so many different shamans. So that's my take. I'm very respectful about what I do when the shamanism comes into my practice.
So let me clarify. The word shaman or shamanism is healer, but specifically, give me some examples. I mean, I know I do a lot of shamanistic things. I always have. I've explored this. I haven't had your specific training, but I want to hear in your words specifically what that means. In what way does the healing take place? What's your practice like?
There's different layers in it. We have typically that you can find your spirit guide, your spirit helper. And that's very sweet and practical, because now you have a guide that kind of, even in any type of work that we might do, including Reiki, healing, all kinds of ways that are now merging into our new society. So shamanism goes back so far that we are using it in a more modern approach. But that also depends on what method you want to use, as it is in a 5-year, programs that I attended, 3 years intense, and a 2 years preparation to be able to take this 3-year shamanism in advanced healing. So there is so many components to that. You can find a spirit guide, but as that would be like what we can do for ourselves is a self-empowering tool. I can get to that later, but the answer to your question is it depends on what you want to do with self-healing. But when we have then practice therapy, astrology, Reiki, we then reach out to clients. And that is the difference, that I feel that when I do shamanic healing, I am very respectful, perhaps for me, what the client would need. So it depends on the situation too. as in the shamanism, actually, you can hear my slight accent or my accent from Sweden. So you have the word in Swedish for shaman is Samer, Samer. That comes from Siberia. So then you have that in the country. And when you look at all the countries, they have different rituals, different implementation of how psychopomp, soul retrieval. I love soul retrievals, which then is a specific way of journeying into what we call lost souls. South American healers, shamans. So that is depending on the situation.
So those the lost souls or the soul retrieval can be souls that are trapped in the physical plane after they have passed on, who need to go on to the light and go on to higher planes. But it can also be people who have lost connection with their soul.
And especially it happens, of course, because yes, you sometimes in shamanic journey, you might go into other realms of deceased spirits. Mm-hmm. But in here on this earth, many people have lost their soul and sometimes are not aware of it. So in the shamanic work, when I do it, when I perform any type of shamanic work, I want to make sure that I am available so I, Agneta, can get out of here. You know, we have to kind of, and of course, see the client situation. And in that process, if we think about lost souls, you have accidents, could be a traffic, could be car accident. We lose it. We just go out because we don't want to remember. And of course, physical abuse, sexual abuse, because we get so scared. So in the process of, which happens to be my favorite part of shamanism, is soul retrieval. Because never mind my own experience, which is, you know, not personal, but that is how we can translate into a client that we actually catches through different rituals. We catches that lost part of the person, the soul.
Yeah. And then there are sometimes just parts of them that are gone as opposed to the whole soul. And, you know, commonly in psychology, they'll call that disassociation.
Yes, very much. I mean, an astrology reading can also be a shamanic or healing experience for people. And I know you have done that.
Yes.
You know, many times it just happens naturally because we tell a client, they go, oh yeah, when I was 14. Now I might go further into that 14-year situation, but then I take that away and I work with spirit. And of course, that is all the spirit guys lined up to help little Agneta, who then has, you know, altered state of consciousness.
Yeah, I commonly, when I do astrology, will use all of my intuition and all of my guides. And so when you see something in the horoscope, of course, you can go deeper because you're getting visions, you're getting sounds, you're getting sometimes psychic smell, psychic taste, you know, all of your senses are in play.
You do get the smell, Kathy, because that's like, I get it. But that's like sometimes so startling, you know. The latest one was a skunk. I'm like, what is that? So it's very interesting with the senses. Because if I may intercede about senses, because when you then sit in a circle, I have done many community circles and they shift and all that, but sometimes is where you might not, you might have one in the group, in the circle, who sees everything, left, right, green, purple, all of it. And then you have some people that don't see it all, but they sense, I'm sensing something. So it's very good to know your senses and not be shy about it. Because, for example, my main teacher, female teacher, Sandra Ingerman, if you ever hear anything about her work that she does for nature, shamanically, very, very honest. And she is a sensory, because she comes back and tell all details, but she doesn't see. So I just want to share that.
Well, yeah. And that was my early training with the Free Soul organization that I trained and taught intuitive development. And in fact, my next podcast I'm going to record, I'm going to talk about the 4 psychic senses and how they are different and how each one of us has one sense that is our primary sense. So some are visionaries, some are sensory feelers, some are more auditory where you'll get words or language, and some are just knowers where they just know.
That's what I'm kind of working with now, because in a presentation that I'm doing soon, right? So that to me is like, that's all the senses.
But
that's almost like clairaudient. Yes. Clairaudient, yeah. It's like, it's just interesting that when you know, but how do you get that senses totally? And I know that, and just how to explain it. Then it's really 5 senses.
Now, in your shamanic practice, you have, I'm sure, trained yourself in how to achieve a trance state very quickly. Because I imagine, and I know attaining a trance state, and sometimes you can even be in light trance when your eyes are open, but the key is to do it quickly so that you can access the other dimensions or the other senses.
Yeah.
In what way do you move into trance? What is your technique?
One is to be ready. As that's just, I might do programs. I'm like, well, that's a better day, the full moon or an eclipse. That's the number one, just to make sure it brings out energy as above, so below, to have everybody. But we do leave this plane. I typically have seeing clients. I make sure that I sit for a while, as we all should do. But when I know that I am ready to move into that different state of consciousness, which is then an altered state of consciousness, out of this reality, not OT, out of this reality. I can't whistle, but in my altered state, I can whistle. I couldn't whistle now, I could try, but that's when I know. And you actually know, as when I teach, I would drum, or clients too. But when I go under, when I know I have done the clearing and I have done what I should do, I start to feel it. And that's where you might use a CD drumming, or I just continue drumming myself. So the sound of the drum is very instrumental in my work. South American would typically have rattles. I use a rattle. So you start to feel, years ago, I was doing a circle and I actually drummed, and I was like above the circle. It was a little concerning, because I'm like, okay, I got to come down. I didn't know it until I knew it. I saw it above. So these are the things you just, if you even, I think maybe everybody can learn that, in training. Or we have some people more natural to this course of counseling or astrology, as it is. We both are astrologers.
Yeah, I'm very dedicated to helping people learn how to connect with that part of themselves to some degree, because in the end, my preference would be that we all connect with our inner shaman, or we connect with our higher senses, and that we learn to get our own answers directly from the universe. And when I'm teaching people how to connect with their soul, how to connect with higher senses, the first thing that I usually focus on is to be aware of their breathing, and to find a breathing pattern that allows relaxation, and to consciously be able to relax your body quickly, instantly, that you have that much awareness. So that's like the first stage, which is an important and necessary stage, so that you have relaxation and awareness of the rhythms in your own body at your fingertips on command when you want them, regardless of what the astrology is doing, because sometimes you need that on command in certain situations.
As you might say, and you have maybe practice it or integrated your spirituality into your astrological practice. And I'm very pleased to see that more and more people are doing that, more astrologers.
Me
the
too.
Reiki is like the foundation. So it's just a very welcoming new way of integrating to clients or people to empower them. Absolutely. I teach them that. And also how I would do that, because as we know, we can't be with them for 24/7. I might suggest them to get a CD or just do their own journeys. There's so many new, of course, at YouTube, you can just download the drumming, because the drum tone is the same as the earth beat. So you have that you just automatically relax. And then you empower yourself with whatever we might have worked with.
Yeah, let's talk about drumming. Drumming and the rhythm and the effect it has on your cells and your heartbeat and your brain waves is so palpable. And one of the things I've been saying is that manifesting and healing right now seems to be happening very, very quickly and effectively through sound waves. And I think it started when Jupiter-Saturn made the great conjunction in Aquarius a few years ago. But it seems sound waves are playing a part in profound healing right now, more accelerated than ever, which includes drumming, chanting, which includes the words you happen to speak, the voice, the tone, the command.
And singing bowl in my area, excuse me, singing bowls are so popular because you can just, and I use that, but also rattle is beautiful. So that's an interesting way, because as you've been around for for many years, or just in this field for many years, I definitely see the increase, the acceptance, the understanding about healing has come forth. I would say even after COVID, of course, but even the last 5 years, people are more open and understanding it.
There's an acceleration for sure right now. Things are speeding up. Awareness is speeding up. And one of the things, again, that I have a special commitment to, because this is the Maverick Podcast, and so you have Mavericks who are listening, and Mavericks are very independent and want to do it themselves. So the free thinking part of the Maverick, which is, I don't necessarily have to be taught. I can figure it out, or I can explore it, or I can try it, or I can do it myself. That mentality is, well, show me how to do this. Teach me how to do this. How can I get my own answers? And I see that connecting and coming into focus more and more. And, in 2025, when we have Saturn, Neptune conjunct in Aries, that sense of, teach me how to get my own answers, I think is going to be in bloom and very strong, and
that's a great way to put it, because we go into, never mind Pluto in Aquarius, like the individuality. Sometimes I feel certain individuals might get a little lost and might need some directions, but many people too do have knowledge. And I would like to add to that. When I go out to local groups, which I've done for many, many years, I think the whole time, and I used to own a bookstore too, so I had programs there. That's not worth. Our lives is quite interesting. So now we're standing at this time to like have everybody join it. So typically too, I do chant. When I do presentation or clients, I might give them a song that they need to take home. And so they are so ready to learn more. And a new way I have noticed is that, and I have kind of got it, like welcoming, most individuals knows a little bit more astrology than perhaps we know. So they're ready to take those, like, oh, don't you see so many pictures of the full moon, of the nature? So everybody's more like one in that new energy, as you talk about. They are so ready. Even teaching in the beginning class that I hadn't done for a while. Oh yeah, I know Virgo. Oh yeah, I know. So you can go further. And that's what I think what we're seeing it's an empowerment of individuality, not just the teacher.
Exactly. The participation.
Right.
And so, one of the things that I love to do in groups are rolling ohms or some sort of chant where everybody gets involved in just, one syllable, whether it's the ohm or the Q or whatever tone it happens to be. But it's fascinating because you get the younger people, like my children's age, they're 29 and 31 years old. Yeah. And they're open. It's like, yeah, let's do rolling ohms. We'll use our voice. We'll open that throat chakra. We'll let that sound flow through from our spirit. It's a very powerful experience. But you get a lot of the older people. I did it once in a conference I taught, and I said, we need to cleanse the energy. This is heavy. Everybody's exhausted. Let's do some ohms. And the older people looked at me like, oh God, I'm going to feel stupid. And it took a while. So I started, and a few of the other brave people participated. And pretty soon it took 2 or 3 ohms before the whole group were ohming together. And everybody's throat chakra opened up. Everybody's heart chakra opened up. And then the room was vibrating. And all it took was for them to get out of their head and get out of feeling stupid and get out of the fear of doing it wrong and to just participate. And that was a palpable, powerful, special moment. It's just like also, I had some music that was drumming music. It was on a CD back then. And I don't know where it went. I really need to get some more. But I played it in between lectures. And of course, I hear that drumming and I'm going to start dancing. How can you not move your body to the rhythm of whatever drumming you're hearing?
Yeah. Right.
And I thought, oh, certainly everybody else is going to get up and start dancing or moving. And I turned around. They were all looking at me like I was a nutcase. And I thought, what is wrong with people? Please loosen up, lighten up, relax. Feel the energy from it. Let it go through your body. Let it loosen things up. But how awesome it would be to have an astrology conference and have a drum circle.
Oh yeah. Yes. Drum circle to me is, I have joined some. It's not what I prefer or present. When I have, it's more like I invite people, usually 15, 20 people show up. I have done full moon meditations. Now I do them quarterly because I'm busy the last few years. But point is that you have to, typically in a circle, you welcome spirit first. And that would rattle and whatever. I bring all my stuff with me. But then when I have attended drum circles, many of the leaders kind of lose it and it gets to something. But I'm not against it. I'm just saying
it depends on the group. I've participated in many, especially with my son, who is a jam band musician.
That's different.
So he knows how to jam and his friends know how to jam, and they're all born in that time frame when Uranus and Neptune were conjunct. I mean, Uranus and Pluto were, Uranus and Neptune conjunct in Capricorn and Saturn in Pisces. So, a lot of those in that generation, they were born in about 94 and 5. They know how to surrender. They know how to relax and flow. And when you're with that type of group, a synergistic merging takes place. And all of a sudden it goes from a chaotic drum to everybody is in rhythm, and the magic of that. But, so sometimes you have to go through chaos to get to cohesion.
Right. But I know what you mean. And it has to be the right leader, because that's part of that. I have had not great experience. I've had some good ones. So I tend to do the
drumming on your
journey
own,
where they empower themselves and I lead. We always do clearing, like you said, chanting, meditation, set intentions. So important to have your intention, because we meditate and we get blissed out. But the intention, you could do intention in a meditation too. But here you have the support that keeps saying, where are we going? I needed to help perhaps one part of your chart or your certain issues. So you, with the drum beat, it just keeps following in that procession, if you will. It's like a whole procession to continue and to make sure that you follow that intention. What I have noticed, Kathy, is that when I do the instruction about the five senses and we invoke the presence of the spirits that would like to join us, what I have noticed is, and I always kind of suggest that if you don't find anything, then you just listen to the drum and you see people, so they are with it. That's okay too, because eventually that will also affect the participation in whatever we do. Yeah. Sometimes we think we get the answer, we're going to get an answer. And it might not be there right away because it stays with you. It stays with you. Actually, a real shamanic session, especially soul retrieval, can take up to 45 days. It can be instant, but the soul just would know as when you process things. So in that, we don't have control over that spirit to say like whatever that is. And it's pretty amazing to see how alive those are and how compassionate. Even spirit animals, some of them might not have been here on earth. They just have that. There's a saying that we're born with a guardian angel and a spirit guide. So we just have to like find them or be in touch with them and definitely get to know them. Yeah.
So right when you were doing shamanic healing or work with people, you can do this long distance as well as in person.
Yes, we can. I do like to, and this is I'll tell you one story. What I like to have, which sounds like I'm cheating, I don't. I like to just have the client's birth information to make sure that I do good jobs for them and all the process that comes afterwards. Because some people have more trances, more difficulties to work with. I give you one example because I went to a conference with so many years ago. I think it was down in Washington. Rod Suskin, he is an African-American Sonoma and a shaman. So I went up to him and I said, I have a question because sometimes I see a chart and then I go into my shamanic state, but sometimes it bleeds through, which is not good. Bleed through is like, we got to make sure we write. But that is the altered state of consciousness. We check into that. Why am I seeing that chart? You don't. That's me, altered state of consciousness. So I asked him about this, like maybe it was before I had done this many, many years as a shamanic consultant. He said, but you have to. I said, like what? Because that is their wholeness that might be split. So I'm like, okay. One example was that I'm deep in trance and the images was like two families. It was so like too much for me even to figure that out. So I went out, had a conversation with the client. She goes, oh, I was adopted. I do have two families. So, and I didn't know that. So that's part of like, I think astrology is so strong in our choice of platform, what we have to accomplish as well as endure. So it is a tool, but we leave it. We don't sit and read it. We just have that imprint and then we go. That's my
I see the horoscope and the astrology as a springboard to help me connect with the higher information.
Yes.
And then sometimes I notice through the many, many years, sometimes I'm doing shamanic type work in dreams. So, sometimes I work 24/7 because when I'm dreaming, I will go visit clients, we'll have conversations or healings will take place or we'll have conversations. And then the next morning it's vivid to me. But most times the client or the person that I visited will contact me and say, I had a dream about you. And it's like, yeah, I know, I was there.
Oh, nice.
It's real, it's hands-on. It's not just a dream, it is happening. And I've had many, many times like that. Times when in dream state, I've shifted into an animal. So I've had those, the transformations.
Merging,
Yeah.
You become that, and that's, yeah.
But a lot of times when I've traveled, and it's interesting, there are also times, there's a difference between a dream and actually the soul traveling when you are in the presence of somebody's soul on the astral plane. There's a big difference.
Big difference. And even your own dreams, you know, the different. How it's not just a dream, it's something else that you go like, okay, I am going to have to not totally know the final answer, but process it. Yeah. Right.
And so the dream state, you know, I work a lot in dream state, a lot. In fact, you know, when I was young, I was having dreams. It was a terrifying dream. There was something that happened to us when in our family, when we were children. There were some people across the street who were really, really bad people. And I had a dream consistently about this person was going to come to the door with a gun, and we would have to go hide in the house. And I knew where to hide so that bullets couldn't hit us. Oh, wow. And the dream came to me over and over and over again for years. And then it happened. Yeah. And I went, well, I've had the dream. I know where to go. And, you know, of course, I'm telling my mom, I had this dream, and she didn't understand any of that, nor did my sister or brother. But these things are common for me. They're common. They've happened to me since I was a child. Yeah. But we do that, you know, in our dreams, we can do this type of work. I'm sure you do that all the time.
Yes, I do dream, and more like when I need some message. Yeah. I'm not a totally vivid dreamer, honestly, but in my dream world is like when I know, then that is something that I'm like messages from friends and all that. But also what makes me think, Kathy, is that certain people, like perhaps you and I and many of our colleagues, have had this realization way back when. Yeah. Some of us go further because of our choice of how charts looks, maybe, you know, never mind that. Purpose. But it's also, I think and when I have restudied Jung, he's in my books and all that, but when you restudy his whole process of individuation, it's not that easy all the time, because we have to know that we're not just, it has to come from a source of either events or sometimes challenging events. I don't sit here for nothing. I say that quite often when you see clients, because otherwise we kind of don't know. Then it's more like the book knowledge. So shamanism is also, we have to like process things. And I would like to add on for your audience that dreams are extremely important, and meditation is great and nature is great. The difference to me is this, or what I have learned from these years is this way. Getting back to the dream state, the altered state of consciousness is like a dream, but you're in your dream awake. Yes. That's the huge difference. So if you, any of the audience don't want to get just like drumming tapes, they're free on the internet, and just kind of try it, because it's a relaxing state. And you might just want to say, oh, I feel different, because heartbeat, all of it comes to be more normal. So in that too, there is a self-empowerment in that work. So I think it's also part of a personality, especially with the beautiful dreams and how you continue paying attention to that. Perhaps that is our, not that we're that old, but we have also have, you can be young and get it, but it also depends on how you look, what you want to do, and so forth. For example, how many years astrology, and then when a client left my office, I can do something more. Maybe I should be a counselor, go back to school. I'm like, that sounds like boring, something too much work. And I had already found a foundation for shamanic studies. So it was just fit me that I would commit myself to different level of who I have become. And the meditation and all that does put a point in. So that's just, I feel it's going to be more increase of understanding that which we are. And I'm very thankful for letting you share your knowledge of it, because you seem to have it and some people don't. It's a respectful day. I don't think we should do an astrology chart without feeling it out and kind of be able to translate that in the
Well,
form
it's all
of
energy. There's a
right.
difference between looking at the chart as a piece of paper and looking at the patterns in the horoscope as energy. And then understanding the person that we're having the consultation with is also energy, and that they have free will and choice as to how they are using the energies in their chart. And, one of the things I talk about quite often in astrology is that I am not my chart. I am not my chart. I am a soul, and I have a chart. And my chart is an imprint of energies that I have that allow me to grow, but I can grow beyond the imprint of that chart because I focus on reincarnation and many lifetimes. So therefore, I've had many charts. My soul has had the imprint of many, many charts. And this one is temporary, but the holistic part, the whole of my being, is that you can take the imprint from your chart to a higher level and live above it in some ways, or you can resolve tension in the pattern of your natal chart. You can resolve it and change it. So I think there's some of that too.
And I think that goes back to why I like to kind of, even if it is shamanically, that I like to just get the understanding of that soul. Yeah, you're right. I was trying to understand because I feel that we have many, many charts and lifetimes, and then this is what we benefited from. Some charts are just so heavy and some are not, but either or is our choice. I kind of believe that we do choose that reality, and then we have a free will. Two sides to the coin, two sides to the planet, always.
And the goal, and I think the goal for this next period we're moving into right now, this acceleration that's happening, is going to be personal empowerment. Which is why I talk about how do we find the shaman within? How do we think in terms of I can be connected to these higher dimensions. I can be connected to my higher senses. I can open myself to this wisdom. How can I start that process? And it may require classes and training like you took, but the openness in our mind that says we can connect with this, we can get our own answers. The shaman within, the wisdom within.
Totally, because there's so many different, I would call it platforms, because since we have a 50-year-old astrological society of Connecticut, I hope we come back one day. There's so many people that are not professional counselor or astrologers or healers. It just gives them a self-worth, self-knowledge.
It continues their learning.
And that's where, if you want to go beyond that, then that's part of shamanic things. You don't have to go to class. You don't have to do anything. But let's say that you want to learn how to meditate. That would be one beginning. You sit and you just get quiet. So it's a breathing, it's releasing. And depending on how far you want to go, as we're talking about shamanism now, there is that with the drumming is so comfortable. And like you said, with your dreaming, what I do sometimes, I put on my headset and just go through the whole night. And every once in a while I wake up like, yeah, right. So it just kind of release something in you, in the subconscious. So you don't have to have a training, but that's what I was referring to you, Kathy, how many years you've been involved or aware. And I think that puts us onto a certain, not at all on any kind of higher or lower level. It's just who we have become at this state.
Yeah. And one of the things that's happening now is there's a lot of channeling taking place. People who are channeling other dimensions, other beings, and they're being placed on a pedestal. And, there's pros and cons to that. So some of the information they're bringing through is beautiful, but the part that sometimes I hesitate about is when people go, oh, it's this holy moly channel. Oh, and there's a worship, there's a devotion, there is a projection of they have this special ability, so I have to listen to them. And what I want to say as a maverick is within you is the ability to connect with those other dimensions
Absolutely.
and to at least listen to what other channelers are bringing through and run it through your own consciousness.
Yeah, right.
But the problem I have is when people go too far in handing away their power to people on a pedestal and forgetting that they have the ability to do it themselves, even if it takes a long time and practice. I just am very committed to reminding people you have within you the ability to be empowered and to sense what is accurate, what is not accurate for you. You know, it's an important thing for me because the idea of worship or devotion is not the paradigm that I resonate with. And I think what's coming up with this Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries is going to be that reminder from the universe to be self-sufficient.
I think it's going to happen naturally.
Yeah.
And that goes back to astrology groups or healing groups, as it would be at astrology conference. That's all astrology, but you see that in astrology community that they are also changing a little bit more of what we're talking about. There's a little bit more alternative ways of looking at it.
As one
there's a lot of different shifts in as the base of astrology is also shifting, which then other individuals like you and I, or healer, astrologer, whatever we want to label that, are also reaching out for those that know that they can do something else for themselves. I think that happens more and more.
So, Agneta, you are in Connecticut. How can people get in touch with you?
So I like emails. Phone calls is like, I do answer my phone, but thank you for asking.
But you have a website, right?
I do have a webpage. Yes, that's Agneta Borstein, no N, BORSTEIN.com. And I actually secured astroshamanism.net years ago. So I have implemented that, but that's years ago. Yes. So I have this kind of shift going on in my 20 year of implementing that. I kind of know what I'm doing, or just people are more ready for it. Astrology are more ready for it. So that's that. And my email is agnetaborstein@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and continuing to doing all this healing work in the world. It is much needed right now. And I know you're making a difference.
We try like you do. We appreciate your job, your work, your commitment. Just before we end, when I came to America, the very first astrologer that I attended, I had been into astrology before, was Noel Till. With his voice. So that was in Hartford. So thank you for all the work that you do. And thank you for the time that we have spent. Thank you so much.
Keep on drumming.
Yes, I will.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.